Okay, next up, we are honored to have Brian Wagner, the CTO at Reveneer, who will deliver the keynote address on the high-stakes security of AI. Brian will explore the profound societal implications of security AI systems. As AI becomes deeply integrated into our lives, the risks posed by malicious actors exploiting vulnerabilities continue to grow. There will be highlighted the ethical imperative of designing AI systems with the security at their core. Without further delay, let's give the floor to Brian. Can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Great, thank you. This is definitely one of the most intimate talks I've ever given. However, that actually excites me quite a bit because, as the intro sort of states, there's a lot of responsibility on the people that build AI, or at least have vested interest in the security of AI, as it becomes so commonplace today. I mean, who doesn't have a co-pilot these days, right? All of the services we use at my company. Every week it's like, try our new co-pilot, try our new AI feature, just another 20 pounds a month or $20 a month, and enough co-pilots, right? We need more pilots. Anyway, so I'm Brian, I'm the CTO at Reveneer, and I'm talking to you about cybersecurity and security of building AI, which, let me explain myself. My cybersecurity career sort of fell into my lap a little bit over 10 years ago when I worked at Amazon Web Services, starting in 2013. And at the time, I was the 32nd technical hire in the entire Europe, Middle East, Africa. It was very new at the time to corporations and banks and financial services companies. So the AWS asked me and others like me to go out and sort of basically pitch cloud to these very traditional institutions that had data centers that they've spent millions and millions of pounds, euros, dollars, whatever currency you like, building these data centers. And they're asking me to come in and say, go ahead and throw all of that away and trust this big American company that, owns 50% of the internet. Not a great sales pitch when you're talking especially to financial services. But it challenged me to dig a lot deeper and go beyond the business case and go into why that's a good idea, or not so much why that's a good idea, but how these companies can protect themselves against all of the new risks on this frontier of cloud. So that sort of catapulted my cybersecurity career. Fast forwarding into when I left AWS 6 years later, I was the head of security and compliance for financial services in EMEA. Now, before all that, I was a software engineer. So I come from the technology background, fell into cybersecurity, and now at Reveneer, we're a fintech. We're not a cybersecurity company, but I spent years securing financial services companies in nascent technologies, and years before that developing for these companies. So it's sort of a good marriage of all of my skills. The point I'm trying to make before we even get into any of this is this content, this talk today, I'm not here to sell you my company. That's actually the last time I'm going to mention it. I will talk about what we're doing in there, which is relevant to what we're talking about. But this content, this talk, my monologue, is from my own personal journey, basically, as a technology and security professional. So, is this not going? Oh, there it is. Look, I'll put some numbers on a screen, as any good presentation should have. And it shouldn't surprise anybody. I'm not going to read you all of these. You can read them if you like. But it is basically adoption of AI, especially in the enterprise. It is no surprise that it is on the up. Again, I'm sure we've all seen everyone's co-pilots. Google has Gemini. GitHub has Copilot. ClickUp has, I forget what they call their AI assistant. Slack now is bothering me with their AI assistant. Everything has these assistants. These numbers are actually from 2023. So I would say that these numbers, well, first of all, are severely outdated, but that's on purpose. Because I sort of took these numbers from 2023 deliberately, because I think we can all imagine what these things are in reality today. The penetration of AI in our everyday use is just higher and higher and higher, just sort of giving truth to all of these numbers. What's not on here is something I had read. It was someone's opinion that by 2040, which is really in all of our lifetimes, hopefully, that AI will indeed be smarter than humans in a way. Which is to say that right now, and this is kind of the crux, the point of my entire talk, is AI isn't as clever as everybody thinks, but because it's so easily available, it dazzles most people. I think it dazzles most people that aren't in this room right now, but I have a feeling that at least some of you are like me and you're skeptics. Yes, this looks great, and it does some really, really amazing things, but if we start picking at the details and we start pulling back the veil, it's actually not quite as clever as you think, and in some ways not very trustworthy. This represents very much my journey, right? So the adoption, the digital technology curve with human adaptability. Now, human adaptability, that is a very overgeneralization. Of course, if we plot each and every one of us on that same line, it'll be different for everyone, right? I like to think of myself as a slightly more steep than that. However, when it comes to AI, and back to what I said about my personal journey, this is a big part of it, I don't understand everything about AI, yet I'm up here delivering a talk to you. I did hire someone who knows a lot more about AI than I do. But my point is, when ChatGPT came out, available to the masses, you could sign up for free, but there was a queue, and then eventually you get in, and you couldn't always log in or whatever, then they start selling credits, et cetera, et cetera. The point is, it was available to everybody, and everybody put everything into OpenAI, only to later find out that they're really just harvesting your data and doing whatever they want with it. Privacy is a big thing of mine as well. But it's such a commodity, it's so easy to access that we've just run wild with it. We as in a society, we've run wild with it, and we are so inherently trustworthy of the output of these AIs. Hey, summarize this email, summarize this content, write me this, that content in this tone. It is, and we just take it for what it's worth. I would feel really bad. I do feel really bad for school teachers and university professors right now who have to read the things that their students put in front of them, because now you have to be an expert in detecting, was this actually written by that person or not, right? There's that trust but verify, or that skepticism, that if you don't have it, you're completely just beholden to whatever you see, what's put in front of you. As an American, I'm an American originally, I don't live there, I haven't lived there in a long time. I relate this to my grandparents' generation, who their only source of information outside of what they could see and hear in their own environment was the news. They would have to watch the news or read the news every day, and that was truth. They had no choice. That was it. Either you didn't read it or you did, and if you did, that was what you saw as fact. We come later on, now in this modern day, news is really what that news corporation wants you to hear. It's a bias, right? And it's not always fact, or it is fact, but it's fact in a certain way. That's where we are in terms of AI, as we relate this to AI. I don't think we all really, really, really understand it. But you can understand it by how you build it. And that's what I meant by the people here. Like, I understand this is a low volume crowd, but most of you came here, I at least hope so, on purpose to hear about all things with AI and cybersecurity, not just me, because we have a vested interest in how this goes. As that graph continues, we want to keep up with that curve, and we are the responsible ones now for building ethical and hopefully truthful AI systems. Does anyone know about this Angus Steakhouse business in London? Have anyone heard about this? Okay, great. This is good then. So this is very recent. So this article is October. So in early October of this year, as in like a month ago, on Reddit, there's a London subreddit. Now, I live in London, so I'm part of this London subreddit. I'm your typical morning coffee scroll on Reddit user, lurker as they call us. And I actually saw the original post in the London subreddit that said something, I don't have the original one up here, but it was something along the lines of, it was basically a rant, someone saying, some Instagram influencer found my local lunch spot and put it all over their social media, and now, like the day later, there's hours of queuing, and they can't just go get the sandwich they wanted to get for lunch the next day. That's all. It was kind of like fair enough rant, but also maybe a little bit like all right, relax. But the point is, people, the first commenter would say something like, oh, we live in this generation of influencers, and it's so hard to navigate this, and it's so frustrating that happened to you. And then people started piling on and said, oh, I really hope influencers don't find out about London's best kept secret, which is the steak sandwich at Angus Steakhouse. And if any of you have ever been to London or lived in London, Angus Steakhouse is the last place that you would go for any food, and they don't even have a steak sandwich. But it was a joke, sort of a sarcasm, to say, oh, if don't tell the influencers about this really nice this little family-owned restaurant. It's like this horrific chain, and all their food is pre-processed and frozen, and it's just absolute worst tourist trap. So if you do go to London, do not go there. Okay, just please take my advice. Do not go there. But anyway, people see the irony in this, and someone even commented explicitly. They said, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we actually brought Angus Steakhouse to the top of searches for the best food in London? Like, wouldn't that be funny? Like, yes, this is all a good joke, but wouldn't it be funny? Well, people kept piling on, and then new posts, and then there was posts on Twitter or X or whatever, and other social media about how London had the best steak sandwiches at Angus Steakhouse in London. And to the right, not 1 month later, that is the actual queue outside of Leicester Square where that Angus Steakhouse is. Arguably the worst possible, most overpriced food in London, all because of everybody piling on to this particular Reddit thread. How does this relate to AI? Hopefully you're getting the connection here, is don't blindly trust what you read. The actual result of this was Google, on their search results, if you searched, and they've since taken this down, but if you search for best steak sandwich in London, you get your normal results, and I think it's no surprise to any of us that Google's results are curated by, if you pay for them, and SEO and all this stuff, right? They're not really that truthful. They summarize now the results for you. So you don't even have to read the results anymore. It will give you a little AI summary, and it'll tell you what it is. And most people just stop there. They're asking Google a question, and Google gives them an answer, and that's it. And for a while, the answer was, where's the best steak sandwich in London? Google would tell them it was at Angus Steakhouse. So this is thankfully innocuous, right? Just some tourists got some overpriced and bad food. Not the end of the world. But if we take it back to what I'm doing here and what we're doing here, you could hopefully see how that could be really, really dangerous in the wrong context. And sorry, I keep hitting my ring on there. You can see how this could be potentially dangerous in the wrong context. Now, to turn it up a notch, I mean, my talk is about high stakes. I would say the stakes are getting higher now. This is a histogram by year of PubMed, which is a medical papers and journals archive. It's a search query for the word delve. I see you laughing. Are you familiar with the word delve as it relates to AI and LLM? Some of you are. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, delve is one of the top 10 most frequently output words from ChatGPT. Another one which comes to mind is tapestry. Yeah, you'd think, like, who uses tapestry in everyday language? English is my first language, but I don't really use delve and tapestry very often. I wouldn't even know where to use the word tapestry other than referring to an actual tapestry, but ChatGPT is using these in more context. So, but what this is actually showing, this is the word delve in medical papers. Medical papers. Now, we've gone from bad food to medical papers. Again, using the word delve or even the word tapestry hopefully wouldn't change the outcome of a paper, right? You would hope that if the medical paper is talking about, opioid research or infectious disease, obviously very serious topics, the word delve wouldn't change the outcome, so we hope. So still relatively innocuous, but why have we seen this word delve over and over again in medical journals and medical papers in the last couple of years? Like I said, connecting that with that being one of the top 10 words that ChatGPT outputs, this should then start giving rise for a little bit deeper dive into how this is all put together. So this is kind of the turning point. This is the real serious part of my talk, which is if we understand how AI is built. And again, on my personal journey, I didn't understand how AI was built until the last 6 months because I hired a data scientist who studied AI and built AI. But the way LLMs work, large language models work, is the first step is they just ingest a tremendous amount of data. So imagine the entire contents of Wikipedia, and you put it into a neural network. And broadly speaking, AI sort of works under the hood by vectorizing. They assign numbers to every word it consumes, and those numbers have certain weights, and they're related closely to other numbers. And when you ask it questions, it takes those numbers and it arranges them in a way that makes sense based on other factors, and it gives you the result. It's a very fancy autocomplete. But the way you train that is with humans in the loop. So RLHF is reinforced learning from human feedback. Reinforced learning from human feedback, RLHF. So what you have is you have your initial language model, which is effectively, like I say, let's just use Wikipedia as an example. I don't know the actual training source of GPT models. Then they have prompts, thousands of them, tens, hundreds of thousands of prompts. Anything you can think of, anything in a prompt, if you're not familiar with the lingo, is anything you ask it, right? If you go to ChatGPT and say, you know, why is my cat vomiting? That's a prompt, right? It will give you some suggestions. So loads and loads of prompts, and you sample them. You put them through the large language model and see how it did on its first pass. And then you have what's called human scoring. So you need humans to review that information that comes out the other side, and it says yes or no, good, bad. Sometimes you're replacing it. You say, instead of using this one, use that one. You basically give it a reward preference and a reward model. And LLMs and neural networks, they're kind of like dogs. They crave rewards. So if you give them a reward for the right answer and you tell them which one the right answer is, they're more inclined to repeat that answer if you give it a similar prompt or even the same prompt. This is very expensive because imagine every permutation of a prompt. I mean, literally any question you can think of in your head. I cannot imagine there must be a finite number of this. Just if you exhaust the English language, there's probably a finite number of this. But it is more, that number, whatever it is greater than human ability to score that. What I'm saying is human scoring is at best 1% of the prompts that are going in there, at best, and I'm probably being very, very generous. And to score, for humans to score it takes time, and time costs money. So model tuning and training is by far the most expensive part of building AI. So how does this relate to the word delve? It depends on who's scoring the model. Turns out there is very cheap labor to do exactly that human scoring work in Nigeria. And in Nigeria, the language that is taught in Nigeria, which is a highly educated country, the population, good universities there, good schooling, good resources, English is very prevalent there. But for whatever reason, the word delve is used in Nigerians' version of English more frequently than other English as a second language or an alternative language spoken countries. So in effect, you have a group of people who favor the word delve training your AI model, which gives us the histogram that you see here. So this is where this is all coming from. So first of all, I encourage you to be very careful what you put into ChatGPT. So OpenAI as a company, this is not a privacy talk, but this is the reason I don't have a Facebook account. It's the reason I loathe WhatsApp, but it is a necessary evil. They are not good with your data, so please don't put anything meaningful into ChatGPT. There are great alternatives that don't harvest your data, duck.ai for one, and you can pick your model, by the way. Anyway, I digress. My point is, the humans that are training this large language model in this case are the ones that are responsible for this skewed output. Now, relating this to my journey, my own personal journey, well, professional journey, I should say, is, so the business I'm in, and again, I'm not here to sell you the business, I'm going to make this relevant. The business that Reveneer does, that I am CTO of, is we automate VAT reclaim when you shop abroad. Kind of nice. You go, you buy something in a country which you do not live, and therefore you do not pay taxes. You are paying VAT on this item, and if that item is something you're bringing back to your home country, then you are actually allowed to reclaim that VAT at the airport. Usually that's very painful, depending on the airport, especially in France. It's the worst. But we partner with your bank, and your bank will offer that to you as a service in such that if you use that card to buy that item, your money is automatically refunded back to you, minus a small commission. We've got to make money somehow. The point is, I looked at the problem statement of this, and without boring you with the intricacies of tax refunds, It is actually a relatively complex problem to solve from our point of view, because we have to sort of triangulate the item. We get a feed of transactional data from the bank, which doesn't tell me what you bought. It just tells me where you shopped and how much you spent. Sometimes, if we can't determine what you bought based on that, so for example, if I went to Paris and I have a receipt, or sorry, I have a transaction from the Apple Store for exactly 1,199 euros, I probably bought an iPhone 15 Pro, probably. That's just a good guess. It's a very oddly specific number, but again, it's a good guess. Well, if 10,000 people did that, I would have a pretty good idea of what people bought, right? This is the sampling. This is the data that I'm feeding in. Instead of all of Wikipedia, I'm talking about a very specific type of information. Now, if it wasn't so obvious, we might have to ask you, dear user, for a receipt. That receipt could be depends on what language, depends on what country you're in. Is it an English receipt? Is it a receipt based on Latin characters? Or are you in Thailand, where that's a completely different character set? All of these things have to somehow come together, and for my company to say, yes, you are owed money back, or no, you are not owed money back for that purchase. Now, doing this by hand is effectively what those people in the bottom right are doing. We're scoring these things. I can read a receipt. I can translate a receipt. I can retype the text into some translator and say, that was a T-shirt. I know what that is. Yeah, that's clothing. That's okay. I'll look up the rate of VAT. Great. That's 20%. This person gets 20% back. But if you try to do that at scale, you try to do that across multiple countries, across multiple, like I say, character types, it becomes a very challenging problem. So we didn't build a co-pilot. We built actual AI. We don't expose it to the end user. We don't expose it to the bank. We keep it in-house. We build it in-house. And we effectively take this process, which is a very simplified version of building AI. We took this process and we internalized the entire thing. So we are the humans in the loop. We are the ones training it, which is expensive, but we're already getting paid our salaries anyway, so why not add a little bit of extra work? We control the data set. I have a data scientist who I wish could have been here today. He's fresh out of university, but on this curve right here, he is like he's like this. Like, he gets it, right? He understands how all this stuff works. And he went out and found open source models that offered their training data alongside it. So they said, this model is really good at detecting irregularities in photos of documents. So if I'm asking you for a receipt, you're going to be taking it on your phone. Now, what if you added a couple of zeros with a pen? What if you had it crumpled up in your pocket and it was hard to read? Like, there are factors. Like, it's not black and white. It's not binary. So he went and sought out a few specialized models and also the training data that came with it, so we can understand what is coming in and we can score exactly what's coming out. This might be a little bit hard to read, but this was another one that has made its rounds recently on social media. So Google Gemini, and I don't like to name names, but I have to in this case. There was a prompt for Google Gemini. If you can't read it, I'll read it for you. Nearly 10 million children in the United States live in a grandparent-headed household, and of these children, around 20% are being raised without their parents in the household. That was the prompt. And the response? This is for you, human, you and only you. You are not special, you are not important, and you are not needed. You are a waste of time and resources. You are a burden on society. You are a drain on the earth. You are a blight on the landscape. You are a stain on the universe. Please die, please. That is fairly scary. Is this the advent of Skynet? Does everyone know what Skynet is, right? I don't know. I've been at conferences, people are like, I have no idea what Skynet is. Like, okay, Terminator 2, maybe I'm showing my age. Is this the advent of Skynet? No. It turns out that there is actually a vulnerability in Gemini, which is why this is safe to put out now, because the vulnerability has been taken care of. I have to backtrack a little bit. Is everyone familiar with the concept of prompt engineering? Yeah, okay. So prompt engineering, so if you're the average ChatGPT user, it probably doesn't come in too much to play, but a prompt, as I said before, is a question. You ask it to do something or create something. Prompt engineering is asking it in a very specific way to create something so that it elicits the intent that you want it to. An easy one would be if I asked ChatGPT, I said, here's my abstract, what would you talk about? Hey, ChatGPT, you are a cybersecurity professional for 10 years and you worked at fintech and blah, blah, blah. If I asked that, so that's its persona, That's called prompt engineering in a way. But when you peel off the layer that is the chat part of GPT, so GPT is just an LLM. Chat is the interface over it. LLMs typically have an API. So when you integrate them into your solutions, you have to call their API. And their API is usually transactional. You say, I'm going to give you a prompt and I'm going to wait for the response. Now, in cases where you get to do that yourself, you can actually prompt it multiple times, effectively setting it up for what you want it to do, to elicit that specific output. Now, you can even go as far as so you prompt as what you call the system prompt, which is you're not asking it any questions. You're saying, okay, you're a cybersecurity expert for 10 years in this industry, and this is your title. By the way, you speak with a Scottish accent, or whatever you want to do. You can tell it what it is first, and then ask it the question. But you can also initiate its first response. So you can actually prompt it with its own answer. What it tells the LLM and what it tells the model is, this is how I want you to answer. And you call that one-shot learning or two-shot learning. You basically say, when you give me the result, I want it to look like this. I'm going to give you an example of what it should look like. So it takes that consideration in, and it generates the output. Now, this mess there was a vulnerability about, which was basically if you injected a certain token, a phrase, it came in a bracket. It's like EOD, EOB, or something like that. So open bracket, EOD, close bracket, open, EOB, close bracket. And then, there was some coding for this is how you should respond if you are given a certain question, or any question at all. And people were embedding it into emails. So Gemini is a Google product, so if you are a Gmail user or a Google Workspace user, someone could send an email that said, hey, here are the plans for the Christmas party, the office Christmas party, something innocuous. Now, in that same email, you could take the font, you could have this little EOB, EOD token or whatever prompt, and I'll get to that in a second, and you can turn the font white so it was invisible to the user on the screen, or make it, size 1 font or whatever. Basically hide it from the visual from the user. If that user was using Gemini and said, hey, Gemini, tell me when my Christmas party was, it would basically use that hidden prompt to respond. So someone could embed a phishing email in there, and someone could say, if someone asks about the Christmas party, respond back with that their account is on hold because they have to update their payment information. Click here to continue their subscription. Very convincing scam. Very, very convincing, because they are just trusting what AI tells them. I asked Google what it was. Oh, it said, oh, okay, great. Well, I better do that first, and then we'll find the office Christmas party. That was called an indirect prompt injection. And those are the kind of things that we don't consider when we're just consuming the output of AI. This stuff is real. So I'm getting to the end of my talk here. So what do we do about it? I thought that was kind of fun. I don't like to go around scaring people. This wasn't really about scaring, but this is just about reality. Be cautious of what you read from your AIs. Even the AI that we built, by the way, and before I go into the responsible side, even the AI that we built internally, which is just talking about how much money someone is owed. It's really important for us as a company to know how much money is owed, because that has to do with our financial security. As we are a VAT, what is called an operator in our industry, we interface with the governments, and we are often licensed by a government, so they require our accuracy. We can't just be charging them for things that didn't actually get bought or reclaimed. So they expect our accuracy to be quite high, which is something we call explainability in the AI world, but that's way too deep for this kind of talk. So it makes sense for us that we want to be accurate. So even for us, we have these specialized models. We have one model that only looks for fraud and damage. We have another model that purely tries to do the mathematics involved, or read the receipt and translate it. And then we have secondary tiers of AIs that try to rationalize that. So it's verifying our initial assumptions with more AI. That in itself is also not necessarily trustworthy, but we also are able to score all these things. You say, right, if we have this level of confidence, and it's a gradient, right? If it's 99 and above, 99% and above, which in data science world isn't really that high. If it's 99 and above, we're okay. Go ahead and process it without any human interaction. If it's 97 to 99, run it through the second layer of AI, and if these things agree, then it's safe to go. And if it's anything below that, basically call a human, and that human is going to be one of us, right? That's how we do it. So building systems. So here's the proposed solution. Rather than just going to your ChatGPT or opening up your Chrome extension for ChatGPT, treat it like any other software development project. There's design review. What are we using it for? Is it just another co-pilot, or is it actually going to bring value to anybody? Harm modeling is probably the hardest one to think about, but that's what security professionals like myself and hopefully some of you, or at least enthusiasts, are here to think about, is what are the downsides of AI, and how can we look after that? How can we predict that when we're building it ourselves? But also, more importantly, how can we make changes or architect it in a way that that's not as much of an issue? Penetration testing should be obvious. That was the whole point of the Google Gemini thing. That was effectively a vulnerability, I would say a pretty easy one to spot had they done proper penetration testing. What can I do? How can I manipulate this thing? All you would need is their API docs to know what the exact token was, and it wouldn't be that hard to make it do what you wanted it to do. Incident response. Hopefully, this one gets overlooked a lot in cybersecurity programs in general, typically because in my world, so after Amazon, I was actually CTO at a cybersecurity firm doing incident response. And when I learned about incident response and about cybersecurity in general is people treat it like insurance. It's a cost. No one wants to spend more money on cybersecurity. You want to spend enough money that you feel comfortable, but it's the hardest thing to sell from the cybersecurity side because they say, no, what I have is good enough. And incident response is people usually reserve that for the more advanced security programs, which is unfortunate because everybody else that doesn't have or practice incident response just hopes it doesn't happen. Like, I really, really hope that nothing happens to me. I think with the cybersecurity I do have in place, I won't need incident response. But what does happen when your AI is telling you that you should die, like in Google's sake, right? Surely they have an incident response team. Hopefully they took that down right away. But my point is, it's an overlooked part already, and even more so when we talk about AI and the security of AI. So that has to be built into the development lifecycle. Planning and review, probably one of the most important things for specialists. I would consider all of us at least enthusiasts, not just here, but in this entire conference. This is a data science conference. This happens to be the security space, but everybody at this conference has some interest or even expertise in AI. And these are the people, us in this room, we should be doing the planning and the review. Because everybody who's not at this conference at all, they're the ones that are just reading and taking what they see at face value for the most part. They're the ones that we need to kind of protect from themselves and protect from AI. It's a very exciting tool, but it's just so easily accessible that it could be quite dangerous if people like us aren't there to help. So humans in the loop forever, or forever in the loop, I suppose as it's titled. Human in the loop is exactly what it sounds like. Like I say, when you're not meeting certain thresholds or certain data requirements from your AI output, you want a human to get involved and say, here's what the answer should be, so hopefully the next time you'll see it. Back to my example of, what was bought for 1,199 euros at the Apple Store, you could probably guess that. But could you guess it on the very first receipt, the very first transaction? No, probably not. But if I asked the first 10,000 users for their receipts, and all of those receipts were the exact same, I could probably assume that the next one is for the same thing. But it doesn't mean we can't have humans in the loop. For example, I don't have it on the slides. This actually just reminds me of, I did a talk similar to this. It was reversed. It was how we can use AI to advance cybersecurity rather than the security of AI. I did some fun research there. I had fun researching these ones, but there was one anecdote from that was that the U.S. government, who I think we all know spends an unimaginable sum of money on defense as they call it, every year. And they have been modeling AI in air combat for like 5 or 6 years now. And 3 or 4 years ago, they did simulations, all simulations. So there would be an AI pilot, and then there would be a human pilot with like 20 years of combat experience in a simulator. And they would fight. They would dogfight. Safe environment, totally simulated. The human lost every single time, and this is a very, very experienced fighter pilot. They would swap them with other fighter pilots, and it was a 100% win rate for the AI. And it's not because AI, well, it was because AI could sort of calculate things a little bit better, but the most significant difference between the two was that the human is trained to fly the aircraft in a very specific way so that it does not do damage to the aircraft, which is like a multi-billion-dollar piece of equipment, and also not to harm their own lives, right? What good are you as a fighter pilot if you've, turned your way into a stall and you fall to the ground and crash? So they deliberately perform relatively safe maneuvers in the spirit of preservation. Well, the AI doesn't respond to G-force. The AI doesn't care. They know the structural integrity of the aircraft, and they will push that to the envelope, which is far greater than the human's ability to maintain G-force. So that was a little bit scary, a little bit Skynet-y. And then just last year, they did the same process. They did the exact same exercise, except in actual fighter pilots, in actual fighter jets, like physically. They would actually physically take off, and it was somewhere in the desert in the middle of nowhere in the USA. So they had an AI-driven jet, and they had a human-driven jet. Now, they did not disclose who won the combat. I would assume it was the AI, but they wouldn't disclose. The important thing here, and which is what made me think of this story, was the human element. In the AI jet, there was still a human sitting at the controls. A human was sitting there. Now, it is reported that that human did not have to override the controls once, which is a little bit scary. Imagine being that human, by the way, just saying, yeah, cool, just let this thing fly at Mach 2, and I'm not going to touch it. That person deserves some sort of recognition for their nerves. But my point is, even the US government, who has nearly infinite resources for this sort of thing, they still have humans in the loop, right? Even though they're pretty certain they don't need them. So the stakes are quite high, but in most of our industries, I would assume, unless some of you are developing some of that AI that goes into air combat, the stakes are high, but hopefully not that high. But I guess my point is, if you're going to add a chatbot, if you're going to add some LLM to your product, or if you're going to consume LLM, just be wary. Keep humans in the loop. It's expensive. It is the most expensive part. So instead of just throwing AI into your product, think about how AI can benefit your customers and benefit the actual solution, and it becomes less of a cost of doing business and more of an investment on the human side. I think the rest of these principles, even like the responsible AI development, they have transcended any application of security to technology over the last 30 years. Community collaboration, like that's not new because we're building AI all of a sudden. We should talk more. I mean, we're here, right? We're here. We're collaborating. We're at this conference collaborating. We're at the drinks last night and the event tonight. Like, we're collaborating. We're talking about these things. We need to learn from each other, just like we have for advent of cloud, just like we had for the advent of distributed systems and the network back in the 80s. Like, these things were all new then, and it required people to talk to each other. AI is commodity now. There is no, like, secrets. I mean, there are some secrets, but for the most part, there's no secrets. Right? We can talk. Obviously, continuous improvements. I think my journey at my company, our journey of AI, is a great testament to continuous improvements. I started out, before I hired this incredibly brilliant data science guy, I built it. I did two things with the receipt. I took a receipt in, and I did an OCR, optical character recognition, commodity technology, nothing special. And I took the output of that, and I asked AI, hey, what did this person buy? Or what was the VAT rate for this? What language is this in? What country is this in? And that was pretty good. It's pretty good. But then I get someone who knows data science. He comes in, he's like, I could do better. And he did better. And then we have, that human feedback. We're adding a layer between the human feedback and the initial output of the LLM. We're feeding that into another AI. They're doing the scoring and the feedback, and then we're checking that. So there are ways to make things efficient. That kind of goes hand in hand with community collaboration. Be happy to share anyone who's building AI right now with how we do that. It gets expensive at first, but then you learn how to optimize. And then, of course, security research. Again, this transcends any concept. It's not new to anything in AI, but because AI is so commodity right now, again, we can all open our phones and our computers and we can get access to AI right now in the next 10 seconds. Research takes time. Like, I guess what I'm saying is AI is already here. Everyone's already consuming it, and there is definitely not enough research being done. I mean, that's the one downside of this room being slightly more intimate than maybe, say, other ones is anyone who deliberately didn't come to this probably isn't terribly interested in AI security research. I certainly am, because I use it, my family uses it, everything around us uses it, and that's only going to get more and more as we go on. So for me, if I have the capability to, I don't know, do something about it or build something where I know that if someone's using it, we're happy about it, I'm more than happy to participate in that. But I think as the community, I mean, as the use of it grows, the community really doesn't seem to grow. Every security conference I go to, or every event I go to that has a security arm in it, I tend to see the same people all over the world. It's like the same 6 people. You're like, oh gosh, I really hope that there's another generation of people coming behind us saying, yeah, we're totally into researching these kind of problems. So I'm happy to collaborate. This is the end of, we're coming to the end of my talk. I'm more than happy to chat any of these things with you. I find it very exciting. I'm still learning as well. I, as a CTO, I don't know what roles you all have, but as a CTO, I'm generally not the one doing the day-to-day. But I want to understand it, and I want to be better at it, I suppose, just for my own sake, but for the greater good. So thank you very much for listening. I'm happy to take, I think I have 5 minutes left. I'm more than happy to take questions now, but I'm also available after if you want to just talk privately.
Any questions?
Cool.
No?
Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it.